Hello everybody, this is TipTop MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering Arena video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about a bunch of new cards to MTG Arena. Now, today, a big MTG Arena update happened where they added Historic Anthology and did a little bit of work towards rotation. One of those things was adding in the new player decks, and for those of you who don't know how they work, I'm going to give a quick little explanation. Essentially, they put the decks in your inventory and they fill them with the cards you have. So they have deck lists, say a red deck list, right? And you have 50% of the cards. Well, they're just going to fill them with your cards. And then the other 50% they give to you. So as an example, say we had Shock in the deck and I already own 4 copies of Shock, then I'm not getting any Vault progress and they're not giving me any Shocks. But if I had 0 Shocks and there were 2 Shocks in the deck, I would get 2 more. So keep that in mind. It's generally just if you don't have the card, you get it, and if you do have the cards, you won't. But that's not exactly the point of today's video. Those are for the multicolored decks. So one example of this would be just any of the cards in the multicolored decks. If you didn't have them already, now you do. But if you did have them, so let's say there were 2 Charmed Strays, but not this version, a different version of Charmed Strays in a deck, and I only have 1. Well, then I'm only receiving 1 copy. I'm not getting 2. So it only brings you up there. But again, not exactly what this video is about. That was for the multicolored decks. For the monocolor decks, they made decks specifically out of these arena-only cards, or maybe not arena-only, but cards that are that have this little A symbol right here. And what this means is that they will be legal forever in historic and standard best of 1. So all the cards you see here that were not mentioned in any articles, they mentioned that they were adding cards like this, but they did not mention, oh, here's a list of cards being added to Historic, because yes, there are new cards to Historic in this list. And there's also some new things to Standard. Remember, anything here is illegal in Best of 1 Standard on Arena. So you could go into a Standard, ranked game that isn't that is not Best of 3 and go play with a Gigantosaurus, even though that rotated out. And I believe what that means is you can also play with your Ixalan version, which may start to confuse people, but that's not the topic. The topic here is that all of these cards are now accessible to play. Everyone was looking at, for Historic at least, oh, look at all these Amonkhet Remastered cards, but, there are a couple interesting cards in here that could actually see a difference. Now, you'll notice, so if you want to see the full list, you can type set:(A and B up here. But you'll notice this is not the same set code as the old starter decks. The old starter decks had these cards, and if we were to show the not collected cards as well, Sanctuary Cat, Knight's Pledge, Shrine Keeper, all of these were already in the game. And actually, Comber Crab actually saw a little bit of play because, well, it's a 1-cost 0/4 that was useful in, certain, toughness matters decks. But if we were to go back to A and B, which is the new set code, you'll notice some weird things. First off, Inspiring Commander, I want you to look at it. I have 2 copies of this version with a golden A. And if we run over here, I have 3 copies of this version. So they didn't just give you more of the same version, they gave you a different version of it, which is a little bit ridiculous, but that means now everyone who has been playing for a while now has 4 copies, so that's pretty nice. But I want to go through some of these cards. So these cards will always be legal in Standard Best of 1, and the reason they did the whole deck thing is because they didn't want to have to replace the monocolor decks. They want it to be the same monocolor decks, that way they don't have to fit it to Standard, they can fit it to be a good tutorial. So yeah. So, interesting cards that are staying in. Well, Hallowed Priest is kind of interesting. It's a slightly weaker Ajani's Pridemate in the fact that it just comes out as a 1/1, but this will now always be legal in Best of 1. So even though we are losing Ajani's Pridemate to rotation, you will still be able to use this. Things like Pacifism are probably always going to be in Standard anyway, but cards like Leonin War Leaders, Angelic Guardian, Goring Ceratops, other just generically good cards. Now, Unsummon is not always in Standard, but in Standard Best of 1, it will always be in there. These are generally pretty generic cards. Winged Words is a little bit interesting. It'll now always be legal. Sleep will be always legal. Wind Breeder Sphinx always legal, but some of them are also more interesting. Like, let's take, where is it? It's a black card. Murder, for instance. This one will not be legal in standard unless it gets reprinted in Zendikar, but it will be legal in standard best of one, which I think will cause a lot of fragmentation. Now, obviously, you'd rather run Murder's Rider over Murder, but if I'm telling someone who doesn't have a lot of rare wild cards what removal spells they should run, I'm going to tell them Murder because it's an uncommon and everyone will have 4 copies of it. So I think that we're really going to see a difference between best of 3 and best of 1. And one of those things that is going to see, a difference is this card. Soul Hunter this card. This card does something different than what it does in paper. Same name, same mana cost, it's just better. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, it deals 1 damage to target opponent for each swamp you control. The original version, I believe, did like 3 or 5 damage, just no matter what. So this is kind of a mini Gary in a way, except it doesn't require you to have non-land permanents. It cares more about your lands. Other notable cards are things like Demon of Loathing, which isn't a great card, but it's not accessible in Theros Beyond Death booster packs because it was part of theme boosters. So they gave everyone 3 copies of these. So, and actually, I believe it was in one multicolored deck. So, do they give you? No, they don't. So they give you 3 copies of it. That's pretty, nice when you think about it. And just, it's very interesting. Now, what I do worry about a little bit is the fact that they added some more goblins. Let's take Tin Street Cadet, which I don't know if that's actually going to become a big goblin. Probably not, but yeah, it's an interesting goblin. Goblin Tunneler. We have, we have Goblin Gathering, but that's already in Historic. We have Goblin Gang Leader. They didn't seem to pick many, high-powered goblins, but it is a little concerning that one of their decks was like, oh, goblins or whatever. And so that concerned me because goblins are running rampant in Historic, but this doesn't look that bad. But in terms of like elves, are there any new elves in here? I mean, I don't believe Woodland Mystic is in the game right now, but I don't know if that's really a good card at this point. I don't see too many of these cards being super relevant. Rampaging Brontodon's pretty big. It's also just nice for Historic players that some of these older cards, for instance, if you started playing when the open beta came out, you probably don't have a ton of Ixalan through Core Set 2019 because, well, you'd rather collect the new standard set, and those cards are going to rotate out first. So for me, those are the sets I have the least of. So it's awesome to have 2 copies of Overflowing Insight, especially for something like Historic Brawl. For Rampaging Brontodon, now I have 4 copies of it. Gigantosaurus, now I have 4 copies of it, because I believe there was one in one of the other decks. But yeah, just notice, like, some of these cards, like this one, has never been in Arena before. So it is a new option for both Standard, Best of 1, and Historic. Looking through, we have, Ogre Battle Driver, I don't believe Feral Roar is in the game. It's not a great card, but I don't believe it's in the game. It was in the game. Woodland Mystic. I don't think Woodland Patrol was in here either. So it's kind of interesting to see how a lot of these cards are new, and they didn't really talk about them that much. Now, this was just supposed to be a quick little video to let you know that this was a thing. I'm not, looking through, you can probably pick out the cards that aren't in, Standard right now, or Historic. Hollowed Priest, this isn't in Standard. Angelic Reward, I don't believe, is in Standard. It's also not that great. Confront the Assault was already in Best of 1, actually. Spiritual Guardian was in Best of 1. Angelic Guardian, I believe, was in Best of 1, so Inspiring Commander. Goring Ceratops wasn't in Standard. Just lots of, cards that just weren't in the game. Like, why add this card? Why not just do another random black 2-1? There's actually one of these, there's a better version of this that has lifelink. Either way. That's going to do it for this video. I just thought I'd let you guys know that there were all these new cards, and that they looked kind of interesting. So if I missed a really powerful card, let me know in the comments down below. I just hope this was useful. Yeah, leave a comment, hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.